The auctioneer's gavel hit the podium with a sound like a pistol shot, loud enough to make the dust motes jump in the stagnant air of the county courthouse. Sold to bidder number 42 for $45,000. Ethan Cole stood there, blinking against the harsh fluorescent lights, his hand still half raised. He felt a strange mixture of triumph and nausea churning in his stomach. The room, populated by shark-eyed developers and bored clerks, went silent. A few heads turned to look at him, their expressions ranging from pity to amusement. $45,000 for a three-story Victorian on the edge of the coast was not a bargain. In this market, a price that low was a warning label painted in neon. He signed the paperwork with a hand that felt heavy. The clerk, a woman with reading glasses on a chain, looked at the address on the deed and then up at him. She did not smile. "Good luck with the Holloway place," she said, her voice dry. "You are going to need it." Ethan did not ask what she meant. He knew the rumors. The town of Blackwood Harbor treated the house like a necrotic limb, something dead that refused to fall off. They said it was haunted. They said the foundation was sinking into the sea. They said the last owner went mad and tried to dig a tunnel to China in the basement. Ethan did not care about ghosts or madness. He cared that he had just spent the last of his savings, scraped together from a decade of contracting work that had slowly dried up, on a chance to start over. He drove his battered Ford pickup out to the edge of town, where the paved road crumbled into gravel and the smell of the ocean turned sharp with salt and decay. The house loomed against the gray sky like a jagged tooth. It was a sprawling Victorian monstrosity, its paint peeled away to reveal gray wood that looked like bone. The windows were boarded up with plywood that had warped in the humidity, and the porch sagged in the middle as if the house were taking a deep, exhausted breath. Ethan killed the engine. The silence that followed was heavy, filled only by the distant rhythmic crash of waves against the cliffs below. "It is just wood and stone," he told himself. "Just a job." He grabbed his toolbox from the truck bed and walked up the overgrown path. Weeds clawed at his work boots. The front door was heavy oak, scarred by time and weather. He keyed the lock, expecting it to be rusted shut, but the mechanism turned with a smooth, oily click that felt suspiciously new. Ethan pushed the door open and stepped inside. The air in the foyer was cold, much colder than the overcast afternoon outside. It smelled of old paper and dry rot, the perfume of every abandoned house he had ever renovated. But underneath that, there was something else, a faint metallic tang, like the smell of ozone before a thunderstorm. He spent the first hour doing a perimeter walk, checking the load-bearing walls. The place was a disaster, but the bones were good, too good. The framing was straight. The roof, despite looking terrible from the driveway, showed no signs of water damage in the attic. It was as if the decay was a costume the house was wearing, a camouflage of ruin over a structure that was impossibly solid. In the dining room, he ran a finger over a heavy mahogany sideboard that had been left behind. The dust came away on his finger, thick and gray. He frowned. He wiped a spot clean. 10 minutes later, when he circled back through the room, the spot was covered again. It was not settling dust. It was fresh. He moved to the kitchen. The linoleum was cracked. But when he stepped on a particular tile near the cellar door, he felt it. A vibration. It was not the rattle of a passing truck. There were no trucks out here. It was a rhythmic thrum, low and steady, coming from deep beneath the soles of his boots. He stood perfectly still, holding his breath. Thump, 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 thump. It synchronized with his own heartbeat. Ethan shook his head, rubbing the back of his neck. Lack of sleep, stress, buyer's remorse manifesting as physical symptoms. He forced himself to ignore it and wrenched open the cellar door. The hinges did not creak. They slid open silently. He shone his flashlight down the stairs. The beam cut through the dark, illuminating concrete steps that looked scrubbed clean. There were scratches on the wood of the doorframe, near the bottom. They were not the chaotic claw marks of a rat or a raccoon. They were long, gouged lines, as if something heavy and metal had been dragged through forcefully. He did not go down. Not yet. The sun was setting, casting long, warped shadows through the gaps in the boarded windows. He needed to set up a base camp in the living room, get the generator running, and eat something before he tackled the dark underbelly of his new life. That night, the house came alive. Ethan had unrolled his sleeping bag in the center of the living room, surrounded by his tools like a superstitious man surrounded by salt. The wind outside had picked up, whistling through the eaves. But the sounds inside were different. The plumbing began to sing. It started as a low groan in the walls, then rose to a harmonic pitch that vibrated in Ethan's teeth. It sounded like a choir of glass flutes playing a single, sustained chord. Ethan sat up, gripping his heavy flashlight. "Stop it," he muttered to the empty room. The house ignored him. He walked into the hallway, the beam of his light sweeping the peeling wallpaper. In the bathroom, the mirror above the sink was fogged over completely, though there was no hot water running. He wiped it with his sleeve. The condensation returned instantly, forming geometric patterns, perfect hexagons tessellating across the glass before fading away. This is not haunting, Ethan thought, his contractor brain kicking in, overriding his fear. Ghosts do not do geometry. This is physics. He followed the sound. It was pulling him back to the kitchen, back to the spot near the cellar door. The vibration in the floor had increased. It was no longer a heartbeat. It was a hum, a running engine that made the loose nails in the floorboards dance. Ethan knelt, placing his palm flat against the wood. It was warm. He grabbed his pry bar. The wood groaned in protest as he jammed the steel claw under a warped plank. He leaned his weight into it, sweat stinging his eyes. With a sharp crack, the board gave way. He ripped up another and another, tossing them aside until he had exposed the subfloor. There was no dirt underneath. There was no concrete slab. There was a hatch. It was made of a dull gray metal that seemed to absorb the light from his flashlight rather than reflect it. There was no handle, no hinges, just a recessed panel with a palm-sized indentation. The smell of ozone was overpowering now, mixed with a scent that reminded Ethan of rain hitting hot pavement. He should have stopped. He should have called the police, or the previous owner, or an exorcist. But Ethan Cole was a man who had lost everything except his curiosity and his stubbornness. He reached down and pressed his hand into the indentation. A hiss of pressurized air blasted him in the face. The hatch split down the middle and retracted into the floor with a smooth, silent motion that defied every law of construction Ethan knew. Beneath the hatch, a ladder made of light, actual solid beams of soft blue luminescence, extended down into a darkness that seemed to go on forever. "Well," Ethan said to the empty kitchen, "that is not code compliant." He swung his legs over the edge and climbed down. The temperature dropped 20 degrees as he descended. The air was crisp, recycled, and sterile. His boots hit a metal floor with a heavy clang. He swept his flashlight around, but the beam was swallowed by the vastness of the space. Suddenly, the darkness behind him flared. A wall of blue energy snapped into existence, boxing him in. He spun around, raising the pry bar, but he could not move his feet. An unseen force had locked his boots to the floor. He strained against it, panic finally spiking in his chest, but he was pinned like a butterfly on a board. "Who are you?" a voice demanded. It was a woman's voice, sharp, terrified, and speaking perfect English. Ethan squinted against the glare of the energy field. 3 figures stepped out of the shadows, silhouetted by the ambient light of the strange machines humming around them. Identify yourself, the voice commanded again. Are you Aegis? The figure in the center stepped forward, and the light caught her face. Ethan stopped breathing for a second. She was striking, tall, with skin the color of polished obsidian and eyes that seemed to be cut from solid amethysts. She wore a mishmash of tactical gear and human street clothes, a torn denim jacket over a shimmering, silver bodysuit. She held a weapon that looked like a flashlight modified with copper wire and glass, and it was pointed directly at his chest, to her left. Another girl crouched low, circling him. She was smaller, wiry, with pale skin and hair that shifted color from oil-slick black to neon blue as she moved. She held a tablet in one hand and a rusted pipe in the other. She looked at Ethan with a predatory grin that showed too many teeth. The third one stood back. She looked younger, softer. She wore a hooded sweatshirt that swallowed her frame. She was holding a small triangular device that hummed in harmony with the room. Her eyes were wide, golden, and filled with a profound, quiet sadness. I am not Aegis, Ethan managed to say. His voice cracked. I am Ethan. Ethan, the central woman repeated, tasting the name as if it were poison. Why are you here? Ethan. I bought the house, he said. The wire-haired girl snorted. He bought the house. Lyra, did you hear that? The human bought the house. Silence. The leader, Lyra, snapped. She kept her weapon trained on Ethan. You bought this structure? Yes. At auction. Yesterday. Lyra looked at him, searching for a lie. She stepped closer, the amethyst eyes narrowing. You are not a soldier. You are terrified. I am a contractor, Ethan said, the absurdity of the situation making him reckless. I fix houses. I do not usually find secret bunkers with whatever this is. Look, I do not know who Aegis is. I am just broke. I put every dime I had into this place. Lyra lowered the weapon slightly. She looked at her companions, then back at Ethan. A strange expression crossed her face. It was a laugh, but it was sharp and jagged, full of disbelief and irony. She looked at the ceiling, then back at him. He bought an abandoned house, but never expected 3 alien girls were secretly living beneath it. The wiry girl, the one Lyra had silenced, burst out laughing. It was a harsh, barking sound. That is the worst headline I have ever heard. We are doomed. Scan him. Mira. Lyra commanded the quiet one. The girl in the hoodie stepped forward. She raised the triangular device. Ethan felt a strange sensation, like a cool breeze passing through his brain. The device chimed softly. He is telling the truth. Lyra, Mira said. Her voice was melodic, soft as a whisper. His biological markers indicate high stress, nutritional deficiency, and honesty. He is not Aegis. He is nobody. And then, as if the effort of speaking had drained her last reserve of energy, Mira's knees buckled. She collapsed forward. Mira! Lyra dropped the weapon and caught her before she hit the floor. The energy field holding Ethan vanished instantly. Ethan stumbled forward, instinct overriding fear. He knelt beside them. Is she okay? Back off. Human. The wiry girl, Sable, he assumed, based on the way she moved like a shadow, lunged at him, swinging the pipe. Ethan caught her wrist. It was like grabbing a steel cable. He did not fight back, he just held firm. She is starving, he said, looking at Mira's pale face. Look at her. You are all starving. Sable froze. She looked at Lyra. Lyra was cradling Mira's head. her expression fracturing from warrior stoicism to desperate fear. "We have not been able to surface for 4 cycles," Lyra whispered. "The supplies are gone." "Stay here," Ethan said. He stood up slowly, showing his empty hands. "I have water in the truck and protein bars. Not much, but it is food." Lyra looked up at him. Her eyes were wet, but her chin was high. "Why would you help us?" Ethan looked around the high-tech cavern, then back at the 3 refugees huddled on the floor of his basement. "Because it is my house," he said, "and I do not let guests starve." He climbed the ladder of light, his mind racing. When he returned 10 minutes later with a gallon of water and a box of peanut butter granola bars, the dynamic had shifted. The weapons were put away, but the tension was still thick enough to choke on. He handed the water to Lyra. She let Mira drink first, then Sable, then finally took a sip herself. They ate the granola bars with a ravenous intensity that made Ethan look away, giving them dignity. "So," Sable said, wiping crumbs from her mouth. She was sitting cross-legged on a crate that defied gravity, hovering 6 inches off the floor. "You are either stupid or decent. I cannot decide which is worse for you." "I am leaning toward stupid," Ethan admitted. He sat on the floor, keeping a respectful distance. "Who are you running from? And what is Aegis?" Lyra took a breath. She looked more human now that she had eaten, though the intensity of her gaze was unsettling. "We are refugees," she said. "I am Lyra. This is Sable. The one sleeping is Mira. We fled a political coup in our home system. We thought Earth was a backwater, a safe place to hide until the loyalist forces could regroup." She gestured around the room. "We found this place. It is an ancient relay station buried here long before your species invented the wheel. We have been hiding here for 6 months. But we are not just hiding from the hunters of our own kind. Aegis," Ethan guessed. "A human security agency," Lyra confirmed. "They specialize in anomaly containment. They capture beings like us. They dissect technology. They erase evidence. If they find us, we disappear. If they find you harboring us, you disappear too." Ethan rubbed his face. He thought about the black SUV he had seen idling down the street earlier that day. He had assumed it was a lost tourist or a real estate assessor. "There was a black Suburban parked 3 blocks down when I drove in," Ethan said. "Tinted windows, engine running." Sable stopped chewing. She looked at Lyra. "They are sweeping the grid. Our camouflage is failing," Lyra said, her voice tight. "The power cells in this facility are depleted. We have been using light-bending tech to mask the heat signature, but if they come onto the property with ground-penetrating radar, they will see the chamber. They will see us." Ethan looked at the walls of the underground bunker. He looked at Mira, sleeping the sleep of the dead, and Sable, who was trying to hide her trembling hands with bravado. "You cannot leave," he said. "If they are watching the street, they will pick you up the second you step outside." "We know," Lyra said. "That is why we were preparing to fight. We would rather die here than be taken to an Aegis lab." Ethan stood up and paced the small circle of light. This was insane. This was a felony. This was treason, probably. He was a contractor who just wanted to flip a house and pay off his debts. But he remembered the clerk's face at the auction. Nobody wanted this place. "I can fix the house," Ethan said suddenly. Lyra blinked. "What? I am a contractor. I bought this place to renovate it. If I am working on the house, noise and vibrations are expected. Power tools, generators, digging. I can mask your signatures with construction noise. I can reinforce the cellar door so no one can open it but me." "You would hide us?" Sable asked, skeptical. Temporarily, Ethan said, raising a finger. Until you can get your ship fixed or whatever you need to do to leave. But I have rules. Lyra stood up. She was tall, almost as tall as him. She crossed her arms. We have boundaries as well. Okay, Ethan said. Rule 1, you do not kill me. Rule 2, you do not blow up my house. Rule 3, when I say hide, you hide. No arguments. Lyra nodded slowly. Agreed. Our conditions, no mind tricks. We do not use telepathy or pheromones on you. Wait, you can do that? Ethan asked, alarmed. We can, Lyra said coolly. But we will not. It is a violation of sentient rights. No coercion, no bonding without mutual agreement. Bonding? Lyra's eyes flickered away for a second. Do not worry about it. Do we have an accord? Ethan looked at her hand. It was long-fingered and elegant. He reached out and shook it. Her skin was cool and dry, and her grip was strong. Deal, he said. The next 3 days were a blur of slapstick chaos and high-stakes renovation. Ethan had to act like a normal man fixing a house while running a clandestine alien hotel in the basement. He brought down supplies, clothes from a thrift store, more food, blankets. The culture clash was immediate. Sable treated the house like a playground. On the second day, Ethan was installing drywall in the hallway when the smoke alarm screamed. He dropped his drill and sprinted to the kitchen, heart hammering, only to find Sable standing on a chair, holding a lit match under the detector. She looked at him, grinning. It works. You do not test it with fire, Ethan yelled, waving a towel at the sensor. You press the button. Where is the fun in that? She countered, hopping down. Your technology is so loud. It screams when it is frightened. Mira was fascinated by everything. She spent hours staring at the toaster. To her, the heating coils were a primitive form of energy shielding. She took it apart and put it back together, and when Ethan tried to make toast the next morning, the bread was ejected with enough force to hit the ceiling fan. Sorry, Mira whispered, hiding in her oversized hoodie. I increased the torque. Lyra was the hardest to read. She spent her time in the basement, trying to repair their comm systems, but she came up for meals. She watched Ethan constantly, analyzing him. You do not smile enough, she told him one evening while he was sanding the banister. I am sanding, Ethan said. It is not a joyous activity. Humans smile to signal non-aggression, she said. I have been practicing. She turned to him and bared her teeth. It was terrifying. It looked like a tiger preparing to bite his throat out. Her eyes were wide and unblinking. Ethan burst out laughing. He couldn't help it. The dust, the stress, the absurdity of it all. It broke something open inside him. That is not a smile. Lyra, he gasped. That is a threat display. Lyra frowned, relaxing her face. It is difficult. Your facial muscles are inefficient. Try smaller, Ethan said, wiping tears of laughter from his eyes. Just corners of the mouth, like you are remembering a good secret. Lyra tried again. It was smaller, softer, a tentative curve of her lips. It changed her face completely, softening the sharp angles of her alien beauty into something warm and approachable. Ethan stopped laughing. The air in the hallway seemed to suck out of the room. He stared at her, and she stared back, the smile fading into a look of confusion. Better, he croaked. Late that night, the house was quiet. Sable and Mira were asleep in the basement. Ethan was standing at the open cellar door, leaning against the frame. Lyra stood on the top step, just below his eye level. The only light came from the basement's blue glow and the moonlight filtering through the kitchen window. Thank you, Lyra said softly. For the supplies. for not selling us to the men in the black truck. Ethan looked down at her. The distance between them was less than a foot. He could feel the heat radiating from her skin, a slightly higher temperature than a human's. "I told you," he said, his voice low. "I am stubborn." Lyra looked at his hands, resting on the doorframe, then up to his eyes. Her gaze was intense, searching. The air between them tightened. It wasn't just physical proximity, it was a magnetic pull. A sudden vertigo-inducing sensation that he wanted to lean forward and she wanted to reach up. It was dangerous. It was impossible. Lyra took a sharp breath and stepped back down one step, breaking the tension like a snapped wire. "Good night, Ethan," she said. "Good night," he replied. He closed the cellar door, locking it. He leaned his forehead against the cool wood, listening to his own heart hammering against his ribs, sounding exactly like the rhythm in the floorboards. Thump, 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 thump. He was in over his head, and he had a terrible feeling that the deep end was just getting started. The basement was no longer just a hiding spot, it had become a war room, illuminated by the harsh cerulean glow of dying power cells and the frantic scrolling of data on floating holographic screens. Ethan Cole sat on an overturned bucket of joint compound, watching Lyra pace. She moved with a kinetic energy that made the small space feel even smaller, her boots clicking rhythmically against the metal floor. She had stopped being the terrified refugee he had met 3 nights ago. Now, she was something else entirely. A diplomat stripped of her embassy, a soldier without an army. "It is not just a coup," Lyra said, her voice tight. She stopped pacing and turned to the holographic map of the galaxy that hovered in the center of the room. "It is an extermination disguised as a handshake." She waved a hand through the projection, expanding a sector of stars that looked like spilled diamond dust. "I told you I was a refugee," she continued, looking at Ethan. "That was a simplification. I am a courier for the High Council. The data I am carrying isn't just personal logs. It is proof, names, dates, encrypted communication logs between the usurper faction, the Dominion, and external suppliers. They are planning to stage a series of border attacks, blame them on the fringe colonies, and use that as justification to invade and secure the entire sector. They call it peacekeeping. It is conquest." Ethan rubbed his face. His hands were rough with drywall dust. "Conquest," he repeated, like Star Wars stuff. Lyra did not smile. "Worse, because they are funding it by selling technology to primitive civilizations that have no business wielding it." She pointed a finger upward, toward the ceiling, toward the world above. "Your world, Ethan, Earth." Ethan straightened up. "What are you talking about?" "We have been tracking illegal tech transfers for cycles," Lyra said. "We trace the signal here. The Dominion is trading advanced weapon schematics, energy shielding, and neuro-interface tech to a human corporation. In exchange, they get resources, raw materials, biological samples, and political leverage." "What corporation?" Ethan asked, though he had a sinking feeling he already knew the answer. "Helix Meridian," Lyra said. The name hung in the air like smoke. Ethan let out a low whistle. Helix Meridian was not just a company, it was the company. They owned the satellites, the high-speed rail networks, the private defense contracts. If you bought a phone, a car, or a pacemaker, Helix probably made the chip inside it. "And they are not working alone," Lyra added. "They have a partner in your government, an agency that calls itself Aegis. They are the ones who sweep the crash sites. They are the ones who make people like us disappear." Ethan looked at Sable. The hacker was sitting in the corner, her knees pulled up to her chest, typing furiously on a keyboard she had jury-rigged from Ethan's old laptop and a pile of alien scrap. "Is that true?" Ethan asked. Sable did not look up. Her fingers were a blur. "True? It is worse than true. It is boringly predictable. Powerful humans want magic toys. Bad aliens want raw materials. They shake hands, and suddenly I am being hunted across 3 star systems because I know the Wi-Fi password to the truth." She let out a short, sharp laugh, but Ethan saw the way her shoulders were hunched. She was terrified. Her sarcasm was not a weapon, it was a shield. Ethan stood up and walked over to the wall where he had started installing acoustic foam panels. He needed to do something with his hands. The scope of it was too big. Interstellar war, corporate conspiracies. He was a guy who fixed porches. "So," he said, picking up a staple gun, "you are telling me that the most powerful company on Earth and a secret government agency are working with space fascists to start a war. And the only thing stopping them is a flash drive in your pocket?" "Basically," Lyra said. "Great," Ethan said. He fired a staple into the wall with a loud thwack. "Just great." He channeled his anxiety into the house. If he could not fix the galaxy, he would fix the Victorian. Over the next 24 hours, Ethan worked like a man possessed. He told himself it was practical. If the girls were going to stay, the house needed to be a fortress. He bought rolls of high-density rockwool insulation and packed the floor joists between the basement and the kitchen, dulling the sound of their voices. He rewired the breaker box, splitting the load so that the massive power draw from Mira's equipment would look like a faulty HVAC system to the electric company. Accidentally, his renovations began to merge with their technology. When he ran a new copper grounding wire for the basement sub-panel, Mira touched it and the wire hummed, glowing faintly. She had whispered something about conductive resonance and tapped the wire into the relay's heatsink. Suddenly, the basement was 10 degrees cooler. Sable had taken over his Wi-Fi router. She had stripped the plastic casing off and soldered strange, glowing crystals to the motherboard. "Do not worry," she had told him when he caught her doing it. "I am not breaking it. I am teaching it to speak binary in 4 dimensions. You will have excellent streaming speeds, and also, the NSA will interpret your search history as static noise." "Thanks," Ethan had said. "I think..." But it was Mira who worried him the most. The quiet engineer spent hours staring at the walls of the underground chamber. The bunker was not just a metal box. It was lined with a dark, smooth material that looked like stone but felt like warm glass. Mira was repairing a failing cloak emitter in the corner, her hands moving with delicate precision. She paused, looking at the wall. "It breathes," she said softly. Ethan stopped sanding a patch of drywall. "The house?" "No," Mira said. "The relay. This chamber. It is not just a room, Ethan. It is a biological machine. It is dormant, but it answers to me." "What does that mean?" Ethan asked. "I do not know yet," she whispered, her golden eyes wide. "But I can feel it waiting." The fragile bubble of their routine popped at 2 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. Ethan's phone rang. It was an unknown number. He usually let those go to voicemail, expecting a telemarketer. But something made him answer. "Hello? Mr. Cole?" a voice asked. It was male, polite, and terrifyingly crisp. "This is Agent Holloway with Regional Code Enforcement." Ethan gripped the phone tighter. "Code Enforcement?" "Yes, sir. We have flagged some irregularities with the title transfer of your property at 42 Seaview Lane. The auction paperwork from the county seems to be incomplete regarding the structural integrity addendum." "We are fine," Ethan said, his voice level. I am a licensed contractor. I am bringing it up to code myself. I am sure you are. Mr. Cole, the voice said. But the bureaucracy is a stickler. We need to conduct an interior inspection to verify the load-bearing status of the foundation. We have you scheduled for a visit in 48 hours. Thursday morning, 9 o'clock. Thursday is not good for me, Ethan said. It was not a request. Mr. Cole, the voice cut in, the politeness dropping by a fraction of a degree. It is a mandatory compliance check. We would hate to have to condemn the property and evict you, especially after you spent $45,000 of your savings. And with that transmission trouble you are having with your Ford truck, you really cannot afford a legal battle. The line went dead. Ethan stood in the kitchen, the silence of the house pressing in on him. They knew the price. They knew about his truck. They knew everything. He went down to the basement. We have 48 hours, he said. Lyra listened to his recount of the call, her face hardening into a mask of stone. It is a flush tactic, she said. They suspect something is here, but they do not have probable cause to raid with a tactical team yet. They are sending an inspector to confirm the energy signature. Once they get inside, they will scan the floor. They will find the hatch. We need to leave, Sable said, jumping up. We need to run. And go where? Lyra snapped. The ship is slag. We have no transport. We need the proof, Lyra said, turning to Ethan. My data core is incomplete. When we crashed, I stashed the primary memory module in a secure drop, a storage unit on the north side of town. I did not want it on me if I was captured. You left the evidence in a storage locker? Ethan asked. Like, next to someone's old skis and tax records? It seemed like the last place anyone would look for interstellar state secrets. Lyra said, but without that module, the files I have are just hearsay. I need to retrieve it. If I have the full data, I can broadcast it. I can expose Helix and Aegis before they breach the door. I will drive you, Ethan said. No, Lyra said immediately. It is too dangerous. You are a civilian. I am the only reason you are not already in a lab, Ethan countered. And I am the only one who can get you through the gate. You do not have an ID. You do not have a gate code. You are 3 aliens in a town where everyone knows everyone. Lyra glared at him, but her resolve wavered. She looked at Sable, then at Mira. Fine, she said. But if you come with us, we operate by my rules. This is a tactical incursion, not a hardware store run. Rules go both ways, Ethan said. He stepped closer to her. I know what you can do. I saw Mira interface with the wall. I know you can mess with minds. Lyra stiffened. We do not... I need to hear you say it, Ethan interrupted. If I am driving you into a trap, I need to know my head is my own. No mind links unless I say yes. Clearly. No pheromone manipulation to make me calm or brave or whatever. And no overriding my decisions if things go south. Lyra looked at him. For a moment, he thought she would refuse. Her culture was built on connection, on the fluid exchange of thought and emotion. Isolation was a punishment to her. But she saw the hard line in his jaw, the American stubbornness that ran deeper than the foundation of his house. I promise, Lyra said solemnly. No link without consent, no manipulation, no overrides. Your mind is a sovereign state. Good, Ethan said. Now, let's find you something to wear. The disguise phase was a disaster. The girls had the technology to project a shimmer field, a holographic overlay that could mask their alien features. But the field had glitches, and their understanding of human fashion was derived entirely from intercepting television signals from the early 2000s. Sable emerged from behind a crate wearing a pair of oversized aviator sunglasses, a neon pink windbreaker, and combat boots. I am inconspicuous, she declared. It is night time. Sable, Ethan said, rubbing his temples. You cannot wear sunglasses at night. You look like a drug dealer. Sable frowned. But my eyes, they reflect light. Keep your head down, Ethan said. Mira was easier. She simply put her hoodie up. The shadows of the hood hid her golden eyes effectively, making her look like a sullen teenager. Lyra was the problem. She walked out wearing a floral sundress Ethan had found in a donation bin, but she moved like a hitman. Her posture was rigid, her eyes scanning for threats. The shimmer field flickered around her ears, struggling to hide the slightly pointed tips. Relax, Ethan said. You are walking like you are marching into battle. I am marching into battle, Lyra said. You are walking to a Ford F-150, Ethan corrected. Slouch a little. Put your hands in your pockets. Look bored. Lyra tried to slouch. She looked like she was having a spinal spasm. We are going to get arrested immediately. Ethan sighed. They piled into the truck. Ethan drove. Lyra sat shotgun, and Sable and Mira squeezed into the back. The drive to the storage facility was tense. Blackwood Harbor was a ghost town at night, the streetlights buzzing in the damp air. Every pair of headlights that appeared in the rearview mirror made Sable hiss with anxiety. We are clear, Ethan said, checking the mirror for the 10th time. They pulled up to the gate of Securite Self-Storage. It was a sprawling grid of corrugated metal rows surrounded by razor wire. Ethan punched in his code. He actually did have a unit here, filled with tools he couldn't fit in the house, and the gate rolled open. Drive to row K, Lyra instructed. Unit 412. Ethan rolled the truck slowly down the rows. The facility was dark, except for the motion sensor lights that flickered on as they passed. Wait, Lyra said, her hand shooting out to grab his arm. Her grip was iron strong. Stop. Ethan slammed on the brakes. Up ahead, at the end of row K, a black sedan was parked. Two men in dark windbreakers were standing in front of a unit. They had bolt cutters. Helix security, Lyra whispered. They found it. They are cutting the lock, Sable hissed from the back. If they open that door, they will scan the interior. They will find the module. We have to rush them, Lyra said, reaching for the weapon concealed under her sundress. No, Ethan said, putting a hand on hers. No guns? You start a firefight here. The cops come. Aegis comes. Game over. Then what do we do? Lyra demanded. Ethan took a deep breath. We do what I do best. We make a scene. He threw the truck into gear and slammed on the gas. The tires screeched on the pavement. He roared down the aisle, high beams blinding the two men, and skidded to a halt inches from their bumper. He kicked the door open and jumped out before the truck had even fully settled. Hey! He bellowed, his voice echoing off the metal doors. Hey! You idiots! The two men spun around, hands going to their jackets, reaching for holsters. They were professionals. Clean cuts. Dead eyes. Who is the supervisor here? Ethan screamed, storming toward them, waving his arms like a maniac. I have been waiting for my drywall delivery for 3 hours. 3 hours! The guards blinked, confused by the sudden assault of contractor rage. Sir, this is private property, one began. Do not give me that, Ethan yelled, getting right in the man's face. The guy stepped back, instinctively protecting his personal space. I paid for 24-hour access. My client is going to sue me if this sheetrock isn't installed by morning. Are you the delivery guys? You look like the delivery guys. Why are you just standing there? Sir, back away, the second guard warned, his hand tight on something under his jacket. Ethan ignored the threat. He kicked the tire of their sedan. And you parked in the loading zone. Look at this. How am I supposed to turn a truck around in this? This is incompetent. I want to speak to your manager. Call him. Call him right now. While Ethan was throwing his tantrum, flailing his arms and effectively blocking the guard's view of the truck, the passenger door of the Ford opened silently. Lyra moved like smoke. She slipped into the shadows between the units. The guards were distracted, trying to de-escalate the crazy man in the flannel shirt without drawing their weapons and causing a noise complaint. Sir, we are not delivery drivers. We are conducting a security audit. You need to leave. Security audit? Ethan scoffed. You have bolt cutters. You are stealing my tools. I knew it. I am calling the police. He pulled out his phone. No police, the first guard said quickly, stepping forward. Put the phone away, sir. Behind them. Lyra had reached Unit 412. She placed her palm against the lock. A pulse of blue light flared briefly, Sable hacking the mechanism remotely from the back seat of the truck. The lock clicked open. Lyra slipped inside. Ethan kept yelling. I pay $40 a month for this unit. I expect safety. I expect service. I do not expect two guys in cheap windbreakers loitering in my loading zone. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. Lyra slipped back out, a small silver cylinder in her hand. She ghosted back toward the truck, crouching low. Okay, look, the guard said, losing patience. Get back in your truck, turn around, and leave, or we will remove you. Fine, Ethan yelled. Fine. I am going to Yelp. You hear me? I am writing a review that will burn this place to the ground. He stormed back to the truck, got in, and slammed the door. Go, Lyra whispered. She was breathless, pressing herself into the seat. Ethan threw the truck into reverse, backed up aggressively, and peeled out of the aisle, leaving the two confused Helix agents staring after him. Once they were on the main road, the tension in the cab broke. That was... Sable started, leaning forward. That was magnificent. I have never seen a weaponized complaint before. It is a human specialty, Ethan said, his heart still racing. Did you get it? Lyra held up the cylinder. I got it. But then, the cylinder began to pulse. A slow, rhythmic red light beat from its core. Beep, beep, beep. What is that? Ethan asked. Is it a bomb? No, Mira said, her voice trembling. It is a homing signal, but it is not transmitting out. It is receiving. Receiving from where? Lyra asked, looking at the device. Mira closed her eyes. From the house. The core is pinging the relay under the house. It is trying to sync. Ethan gripped the steering wheel. Why would a data storage unit try to sync with an ancient alien bunker? Because, Lyra said, a dawning horror in her voice. The house isn't just a hiding spot, it is the lock. And this is the key. They drove the rest of the way in silence, back in the safety of the underground chamber. Lyra slotted the cylinder into the main console. The holographic map flickered and changed. It projected a recording, grainy, stolen footage from inside a boardroom. Ethan watched as a man in a sharp suit, a Helix executive, shook hands with a woman in a gray tactical uniform. The Aegis insignia was on her collar. The relay site is secured, the woman said. The audio was tinny but clear. We have cleared the previous owners. The property is going to auction. And the assets? The Helix executive asked. In transit, the woman replied. We tracked the courier ship. We steered them toward the beacon. They will crash right where we want them. The 3 assets will seek shelter in the nearest anomaly. They will go right into the trap. We just need them to open the door for us. The recording ended. Silence filled the basement. They steered us, Lyra whispered. The crash. It wasn't an accident. They guided us here. And the house, Ethan said. His voice sounded hollow. It went to auction. Nobody wanted it. The price was low. He looked at Lyra. They let me buy it. Sable looked up. What? I am a nobody, Ethan said. I have no family. I have no connections. I am a broke contractor with a history of bad financial decisions. If I disappear, nobody asks questions. If I die in a gas leak, it is a tragedy, not a conspiracy. He laughed, a bitter, dry sound. I am the patsy. I am the cover. They needed someone to legally own the land so they could watch it until you arrived. Lyra looked at him. Her eyes were full of pain. Ethan, I am just part of the trap, he said. Lyra stepped forward. She placed her hands on his shoulders, forcing him to look at her. No, she said fiercely. They calculated your finances. They calculated your isolation, but they did not calculate you. She gripped his shoulders tighter. They did not know you would share your food. They did not know you would defend us. They did not know you would yell at armed guards to protect strangers. You are not a trap. Ethan, you are the anomaly they missed. Ethan looked into her amethyst eyes. He saw the strength in them, but also the fear. She was trying to hold it all together, the mission, her friends, him. Lyra took a breath. Her voice softened. You can leave. Now. Tonight. Take the truck. Drive west. Do not stop until you hit the mountains. What? Ethan asked. If you stay, Lyra said, her voice breaking on the word, you will be targeted. They will come for us, and they will go through you. I cannot ask you to die for a war you did not choose. Ethan looked at the exit ladder. He thought about driving away. Just leaving. Starting over somewhere else. Again. But then he looked at the house around him. The floor he had insulated. The wires he had run. The coffee mug Mira had left on the workbench. This is my house, Ethan said quietly. He looked back at Lyra, and I am not leaving my friends. Lyra stared at him. Her composure cracked. The diplomat vanished, and the woman underneath surfaced. She stepped closer, closing the gap between them. You are a fool, she whispered. Probably, Ethan said. The air between them charged again, heavier than before. It wasn't just gratitude. It was recognition. Two people who had been running, him from his failures, her from her duty, finally stopping. Ethan reached out, his hand brushing her waist. Lyra leaned in, her eyes fluttering shut. Her breath hitched. The consent was there, unspoken but loud in the silence. The magnetic pull was irresistible. He tilted his head. She tilted hers. I refuse. Sable's voice rang out like a trumpet blast. Ethan and Lyra jumped apart as if they had been electrocuted. Sable was standing by the console, holding a bag of chips she had stolen from the pantry. I refuse to be trapped in a human romance subplot without snacks, she announced, crunching loudly on a potato chip. It is biologically exhausting to watch. Either kiss or calculate the orbital mechanics of our doom. But pick one. Lyra smoothed her dress, her face flushing a deep violet. We were discussing strategy. Sable rolled her eyes. You were discussing each other's oral bacteria. It was gross and fascinating, but mostly gross. Ethan coughed, hiding a smile. He looked at Lyra. She looked back, and for a second, the violet blush deepened. We have work to do, Lyra said, her voice trying to regain its command. Right, Ethan said, work. But as they turned back to the glowing screens, the distance between them remained small, and the house, sensing the shift, seemed to hum a little louder beneath their feet. The Wednesday morning sun was barely clearing the horizon when the gravel of Ethan's driveway crunched under tires. Ethan was in the kitchen drinking coffee that tasted like battery acid and anxiety. He froze. The inspection was scheduled for Thursday, They had 24 hours of buffer time. Or at least, they were supposed to. He moved to the window, peering through the gap in the plywood. It was not the code enforcement officer's sedan. It was a heavy-duty tactical van, painted a benign municipal white, but sitting low on its suspension. Two men got out. They wore gray windbreakers that did not quite conceal the bulk of body armor underneath. They carried cases that looked like surveying equipment, but Ethan knew better. They were scanners. "They are here," Ethan said. His voice was calm, but his pulse hammered against his throat. Sable's voice crackled through the comms earbud he was wearing. "They are early. That is cheating. Villains are supposed to respect the calendar invites." Ethan grabbed the sledgehammer leaning against the refrigerator. "Get to the tunnel entrance. Seal the hatch from below. I am going to buy us some time." "How?" Lyra asked, her voice tense. "I am going to have an industrial accident," Ethan said. He sprinted into the main hallway. The cellar door was at the end of the corridor, framed by old load-bearing studs he had been meaning to reinforce. He did not reinforce them. Instead, he swung the sledgehammer with all the desperate strength of a man defending his life. Crack! The dry timber splintered. Dust exploded into the air. Ethan swung again, hitting the jack stud supporting the header. The wood screamed, a high-pitched shearing sound, and a 10-foot section of lath and plaster ceiling groaned and gave way. It came down in a thunderous avalanche of white dust, gray debris, and century-old insulation, completely burying the hallway and blocking the path to the cellar door. Ethan threw the hammer into the pile and fell backward, coughing, waving his hands as the front door burst open. "Mr. Cole!" one of the agents shouted, drawing a weapon before quickly tucking it back away when he saw the contractor sprawled on the floor. "Do not come in," Ethan wheezed, scrambling back, his face masked in white powder. "Structural failure. The whole north support is going." The agent stopped in the foyer, looking at the wall of debris that now separated them from the rear of the house. "We are here for the inspection," the lead agent said, stepping over a piece of crown molding. He scanned the room with cold, calculating eyes. "I told you guys Thursday," Ethan yelled, standing up and dusting himself off aggressively. "I was shoring up the beam and it just let go. This place is a death trap. If you walk past that archway, the second floor is going to come down on your head." The agent pulled a device from his pocket. It looked like a Geiger counter. He pointed it at the floor. "We are picking up energy readings, Mr. Cole, consistent with unshielded geological activity or something else." "It is the radon fan," Ethan lied, improvising wildly. "I dug up the slab to install a radon mitigation system and hit a pocket of gas. That is why the readings are crazy. Seriously, you need to get out. I have to call the fire department." The agent looked at the debris pile, then at Ethan. He tapped his earpiece. "Perimeter check," the agent murmured. "The subject is uncooperative. The structure is compromised. Deploy the ground-penetrating mapping units. We are not leaving until we see what is under this floor." Ethan's blood ran cold. They were not just looking for illegal tenants. They were mapping the underground. He turned and bolted toward the kitchen, grabbing his keys. "I am getting my tools from the truck. Do not touch anything." He ran out the back door, but he did not go to the truck. He vaulted the railing of the rotting back porch, slid down the muddy embankment, and ducked into the overgrown drainage ditch that ran parallel to the property line. He pulled a heavy iron grate aside, one he had loosened 2 days ago, and slipped into the darkness of the storm tunnels. The storm tunnels were damp, smelling of brine and ancient rot. Ethan clicked on his flashlight. 3 pairs of eyes reflected the beam back at him. "Did you kill the house?" Sable asked. She sounded impressed. I maimed it, Ethan said, breathing hard. We have maybe 10 minutes before they realize I am not coming back and start digging. They are using resonance mappers, Lyra said. She was pacing the narrow concrete walkway, the tunnel curving away into darkness behind her. I saw the equipment on the external cameras before we cut the feed. They are pulsing the ground. They are not just looking for a bunker. Ethan. They are measuring the geometry of the relay. Ethan led them deeper into the tunnel. The sound of the ocean grew louder, echoing off the curved brick walls. What is this relay anyway? Ethan asked. You said it was a communication gate. Like a phone. Lyra shook her head. Imagine a phone that can broadcast a signal into the neural cortex of every sentient being in a system. The relay was built by the architects, a precursor race that vanished millions of years ago. It was designed to share truth, history, science, art. It connects minds to a shared reality. But it can be inverted, Mira said. Her voice was small, echoing strangely in the pipe. Inverted how? Ethan asked. If you control the signal, Lyra said grimly. You do not just share truth. You define it. You can broadcast a command that feels like an original thought. You can make an entire population believe a lie is their own memory. That is what the Dominion wants. They want to use the relay to broadcast a peace signal that pacifies the outer colonies, making them surrender without firing a shot. And Mira? Ethan asked, glancing back at the quiet engineer. Why does she pass out every time she touches it? Mira stopped walking. She looked at her hands. Because I am the tuner, she whispered. Sable groaned. We agreed not to do the cryptic mystique thing. Mira, tell him. Mira looked up. Her golden eyes were luminous in the gloom. My DNA has been sequenced to resonate with architect technology. I do not just use the interface. I become the interface. I can feel the relay right now. It is waking up. It feels like a second heartbeat in my bones. It is scared. The machine is scared? Ethan asked. It knows the wrong hands are reaching for it, Mira said. A low thrumming sound vibrated through the tunnel walls. Drones, Sable hissed. Aegis is sweeping the drainage grid. Run, Lyra commanded. They broke into a sprint. The tunnel sloped downward, the air turning colder and saltier. They were heading for the sea caves, a network of hollows carved into the cliff face below the house. The ground beneath them became slick with algae. They burst out of the tunnel mouth and onto a narrow ledge inside a massive cavern. The ocean churned below, black water crashing against jagged rocks. Daylight filtered in through cracks in the ceiling, cutting through the mist like laser beams. The drone sound grew louder, a swarm of angry hornets. Into the water? Ethan yelled over the roar of the waves. No, Sable shouted back. Thermal sensors. The water is cold. We are warm. We will light up like flares. There. Lyra pointed to a fissure in the rock wall, a narrow crack barely wide enough for a person. They scrambled toward it. Ethan boosted Mira up, then shoved Sable through. Lyra went next, and Ethan squeezed in last, dragging a piece of driftwood across the opening to obscure it. They were jammed into a space no bigger than a closet. The rock was cold and wet. Ethan was pressed flat against the back wall. Lyra was pressed against him, her back to his chest. Sable and Mira were crouched at their feet. The hum of the drones entered the cave. Blue searchlights swept across the wet stone, dancing over the driftwood barrier. They are switching to bioscans, Lyra whispered. She was trembling. Not from fear, Ethan realized, but from the effort of holding still. They will detect our heart rates. Ethan felt his own heart hammering against Lyra's spine. We are trapped. I can mask us, Lyra said. She turned her head, looking up at him over her shoulder. Her face was inches from his. "But I need to link with you. I need to use your biosignature to ground the camouflage field. I need to sync our nervous systems." Ethan looked at her. He remembered the rules. "Do it," he said. "I need clear consent." "Ethan," she insisted, her eyes searching his. "This is intrusive. You will feel everything I feel." Ethan nodded. "Yes, I consent. Do it." Lyra closed her eyes. She reached back and gripped his hand. "Safe word is anchor," she whispered. The sensation hit him not like a sound or a touch, but like a sudden drop in gravity. Snap. The boundaries of his mind dissolved. He was suddenly aware of the cold rock against his back, but also of the desperate, clawing need to protect the data core in Lyra's pocket. He felt the weight of a dying star system on his shoulders, a crushing, suffocating responsibility that Lyra carried every single second. He felt her fear. It was sharp and metallic. But underneath the fear was a spine of steel, a pride so fierce it burned. She was a diplomat, a voice for the voiceless, and the indignity of hiding in a hole enraged her. And then he felt the warmth. It started in her chest and radiated outward, wrapping around him. It was a golden, heavy heat. It was desire. She wanted him, not just as an ally, but as a man. She admired his rough hands, his stubborn jaw, the way he stood between her and the world. She felt an ache for him that was so profound it made his own knees weak. Lyra gasped, because the link went both ways. She felt his decency. It wasn't a soft, passive thing. It was a wall, a fortress of no, you do not hurt them. She felt the loneliness he had been nursing since his business failed, the hollow space in his life that he filled with work. And she felt his attraction to her, a terrified, awestruck reverence for her strength, mixed with a very simple, very human urge to pull her close and keep her safe. The feedback loop intensified. Her desire fed his protective instinct fed her trust. It was a spiral of intimacy that went deeper than skin, deeper than words. It was like standing naked in a thunderstorm. Their hands, still gripped together, tightened until the knuckles turned white. Ethan's forehead dropped to rest against the back of her head. He could feel her pulse as if it were his own. Thump, thump. Thump, thump. The drone light swept past the crack in the rock. To the sensors, the crevice appeared to be empty stone. The combined biosignature was perfectly synchronized with the ambient resonance of the earth. The drone hum faded. They moved on. Lyra broke the link with a sharp intake of breath. She pulled her hand away and stumbled forward a half step, hitting the opposite wall. She was shaking. Ethan leaned back against the rock, gasping for air as if he had just run a marathon. The absence of her mind in his head left a sudden, aching void. "Are we clear?" Sable asked from the floor. Her voice was unusually quiet. Lyra nodded. She would not look at Ethan. "Clear," she croaked. Mira looked up at them. She tilted her head, observing the flushed skin and the rapid breathing. "Human courtship is remarkably inefficient," Mira observed. Her tone was factual, like she was discussing engine repair. "You spend cycles pretending you do not wish to copulate. Then you engage in high-stress telepathy that simulates the emotional equivalent of 50 years of marriage. And then you stand there looking embarrassed. It would be faster to just exchange genetic compatibility charts and hold hands." Sable snorted, the tension breaking. "Thank you, Mira. Your romantic advice is, as always, terrifyingly clinical." Ethan looked at Lyra. She finally looked back. Her amethyst eyes were wide, vulnerable. There was no hiding now. He knew. She knew. "We need to keep moving," Lyra said. Her voice was steady. but he could hear the tremor in it. "Right," Ethan said, moving. They emerged from the sea caves 3 miles down the coast, near the rusted skeleton of an old canning factory. They looked like drowned rats, covered in salt spray and cave slime. Ethan hot-wired a truck, an ancient delivery van that had been left to rot behind the cannery. He left a note on the dashboard that said, "I owe you $500, sorry," and signed it Aegis, Petty. Sable approved as she climbed into the back. "I like it." They drove inland, skirting the main highways, heading toward the neon sprawl of Metro City. Lyra's contact was waiting in the warehouse district, a place where the streetlights flickered and the rain smelled like diesel. The contact was a man named Silas Vance. He operated out of the back of a failing electronics repair shop. Vance was a jittery man with ink-stained fingers and eyes that darted constantly to the door. He looked like a man who had seen too much and slept too little. He let them in and locked the door with 4 separate deadbolts. "You brought the contractor," Vance hissed, looking at Ethan with suspicion. "He is with us," Lyra said. She placed the data core on the counter. "We have the proof. Silas, the coup, the trade deals." Vance picked up the core. He plugged it into a massive shielded server bank that took up half the room. "If this is what you say it is," he muttered, typing furiously. "It is not just a story. It is a death sentence." He pulled up a document on the screen. It was a legislative draft. "Look at this," Vance said, pointing a trembling finger. "The Planetary Security Authorization Act. It is being fast-tracked through the Senate right now. Senator Corvus is sponsoring it." "Who is Corvus?" Ethan asked. "A silent partner in Helix Meridian," Vance said. "This bill reclassifies extraterrestrial biological entities as strategic resources rather than sentient beings. It strips you of all rights. If this passes, Aegis does not just have permission to hunt you, they have a mandate to harvest you." "Harvest?" Mira asked, her voice trembling. "Parts," Vance said bluntly. "Tech extraction, biological splicing. Helix wants the monopoly on alien science, and Aegis wants the weapons." He tapped the screen again. "And look at the addendum. Priority asset seizure. It lists specific coordinates for immediate eminent domain confiscation." Ethan leaned in. He recognized the latitude and longitude. "That is my house," he said. "It is labeled a national security parcel," Vance said. "They are not just going to take it, Ethan. They are going to erase it. They are going to build a black site bunker right on top of that relay." A loud thud echoed from the alleyway behind the shop. Vance froze. He looked at the security monitors. The screen showing the back alley went static. "They are here," Vance whispered. He looked at Lyra, terror in his eyes. "You led them here. We masked our trail," Sable protested. "Not well enough." Vance grabbed the data core and shoved it back into Lyra's hand. "Get out. The roof access, go." "What about you?" Ethan asked. Vance pulled a shotgun from under the counter. "I am going to buy you 2 minutes. Go." They scrambled up the metal staircase to the roof. As they burst out into the rain-slicked night, the sound of gunfire erupted below them, a shotgun blast, followed by the suppressed thwip-thwip of tactical rifles. Then silence. Ethan stopped, looking back at the hatch. "Do not," Lyra said, grabbing his arm. "We cannot save him." They ran across the rooftops, leaping over gaps between buildings, the neon signs of the city flashing below them. Open, girls, liquor. They scrambled down a fire escape into a bustling avenue. The rain was coming down hard now, blurring the lights into streaks of color. "There," Ethan pointed to a taxi stand. They piled into a cab. Ethan shoved a wad of cash at the driver, money he had kept in his boot for emergencies. "Drive," he yelled. "Just drive!" The cab pulled out, but a black SUV squealed around the corner, cutting across 3 lanes of traffic to intercept them. "They are boxing us in," Sable yelled. She pulled out her tablet. "I am accessing the municipal traffic grid." "Can you do that?" Ethan asked. "I am an interstellar fugitive with a quantum processor," Sable said, her fingers flying. "I can do anything I want with your primitive traffic lights. Hold on." She tapped the screen. The intersection ahead turned green, not just for them, for everyone. Cars from all 4 directions surged forward. Ethan's cab driver screamed and slammed on the brakes. The black SUV behind them accelerated, trying to ram them, but was T-boned by a delivery truck that had the right of way, according to the green light. Chaos erupted, horns blared, metal crunched. Sable was laughing, a manic, terrified, high-pitched laugh. "Left! Go left!" The driver, terrified of the crazy people in his back seat, swerved left. Sable tapped the screen again. The lights on the cross street turned red, stopping a line of police cars that had joined the pursuit. Then she turned all the pedestrian walk signs to walk. A crowd of people with umbrellas flooded the street, creating a human barrier that the Aegis SUVs could not cross without causing a massacre. It was a ballet of comedic destruction. A garbage truck collided with a fire hydrant, sending a geyser of water into the path of a pursuing motorcycle. A line of smart cars suddenly received a command to activate their park assist simultaneously, causing them all to violently parallel park in the middle of the highway. "We are clear," Sable cheered, though her hands were shaking so hard she nearly dropped the tablet. They abandoned the taxi 5 blocks later and disappeared into the subway system, merging with the late-night crowd of commuters. They sat on a bench at the far end of the platform, huddled together. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by a cold, hard dread. "Vance is dead," Ethan said quietly. He was staring at the dirty tile floor. Lyra nodded. Her face was grim. "He died to give us this," she said, holding up the data core. Ethan looked at the people on the platform. Tired nurses, students, drunks. They had no idea what was happening beneath their feet or above their heads. They thought the world was safe. They thought the government protected them. He realized then that his desire for a quiet life, his obsession with fixing the house and ignoring the world, had been a luxury, a dangerous one. "Staying quiet to stay safe," he murmured. "What?" Lyra asked. "That is what I have been doing my whole life," Ethan said, "keeping my head down, following the rules." He looked at Lyra, then at the tracks where the train was approaching, its lights cutting through the dark. But staying quiet to stay safe is just how monsters get promoted. He stood up as the train doors opened. "We are going back," he said. "Back where?" Sable asked. "To the house," Ethan said. "They want the relay? Let's go give it to them, but not the way they expect." Lyra looked at him, and for the first time since the mind link, the connection flared again, not telepathically, but in the shared look of 2 people who had just decided to stop running. "To the house." Lyra agreed. The smell of the tunnels was a physical weight, a heavy blanket of stagnant water, rust, and the ammonia tang of rat droppings. They had been walking for 2 hours. Ethan Cole was used to crawling into crawl spaces that would make a claustrophobe weep. But this was different. These were not just storm drains. They were the forgotten arteries of the town, infrastructure built a century ago and paved over by progress. The flashlight beam cut through the gloom, illuminating brickwork that was surprisingly intricate. Archways laid by masons who were dead before Ethan's grandfather was born. "We are close," Mira whispered. She was leading them, walking with a strange, trance-like certainty. Her hand trailed along the slimy brick wall, her fingers dancing over the mortar as if reading Braille. "Close to what?" Ethan asked. His boots splashed in 3 inches of muck. "We are under the municipal district. The old water treatment plant should be right above us, close to the pulse," Mira said. "It is singing." Sable, walking behind Ethan, held her nose. "It is not singing. It is decomposing. This entire adventure smells like a biology experiment gone wrong. If we survive this, I am demanding a luxury shower with lavender and a hazmat suit." Lyra brought up the rear, her weapon drawn, her eyes scanning the darkness behind them. "Keep moving," she ordered, though her voice was less commanding than usual. The encounter in the sea caves had rattled her. The mind link had stripped away her diplomat's armor, leaving her exposed. Every time her eyes met Ethan's in the dark, there was a flash of something raw, a memory of the heat they had shared. They reached a junction where the brick ended and smooth, seamless concrete began. It was a jarring transition, like stepping from the 19th century directly into a hospital corridor. A heavy steel door blocked the path, marked with a faded Municipal Water Authority logo. Mira stopped. She placed her palm flat against the steel. "Behind here," she said. "The song is loud here." Ethan moved to the front. He examined the door. It looked like a standard utility access. But when he looked closer at the frame, he saw the hairline seams of magnetic locks. "This is not a water plant door," Ethan whispered. He pointed to the hinges. "These are reinforced blast seals. And look at the floor." He shone the light down. The muck stopped abruptly at the threshold. The concrete beyond was pristine. "Sable, can you open it?" Lyra asked. Sable pushed past Ethan, cracking her knuckles. "Electronic locks are my love language. Give me 30 seconds. She pulled a bundle of wires from her pocket and jammed them into the keypad housing. Her tablet glowed blue, illuminating her sharp, focused face. "Done," she whispered. The door hissed, a pneumatic exhale, and slid open. They stepped through, and the world changed. The tunnel opened up into a cavernous underground facility. It was not a damp sewer. It was a cathedral of brushed steel and glass, lit by harsh white halogen strips. The air was scrubbed clean, smelling of ozone and antiseptic. Rows of servers hummed in the distance, and in the center of the room, a massive drilling rig bored downward, its diamond-tipped bit silent for the moment but positioned over a glowing blue aperture in the floor. A helix lab. Lyra breathed. "It is right under the town hall." They moved into the shadows of a stack of shipping crates. Ethan's contractor eyes immediately began dissecting the space. "They retrofitted the foundation," he whispered, pointing up. "See those I-beams? That is new steel supporting the old brick arches of the building above. They hollowed out the sub-basement." He scanned the layout. "Ventilation ducts are oversized," he noted. "Industrial cooling, probably for the servers, if we need to move vertically. Those ducts are our ladder. And the floor..." He frowned. "What about the floor?" Lyra asked. "It is floating," Ethan said. "See the gap at the baseboards? It is a vibration-dampening platform. They are trying to keep the drilling from shaking the mayor's coffee cup upstairs. That means there are sensors everywhere to monitor movement. We have to walk on the structural seams." "Walk where I walk," he commanded. They moved in single file, stepping only where the steel plates joined. As they crept deeper into the lab, the clinical cleanliness gave way to something darker. They passed a row of glass containment cells. Most were empty, but the evidence of their purpose was left behind. Lyra stopped at a cell, her hand pressed against the glass. Inside, on a metal table, lay a pile of personal effects, a torn flight suit, a strange multifaceted musical instrument, a child's toy that looked like a floating geometric puzzle. These are not just artifacts, Lyra whispered, her voice trembling with rage. These belong to people, travelers, refugees. She looked at the scorch marks on the wall inside the cell. They fought back, she said, and they lost. Ethan felt a cold knot in his stomach. This wasn't just corporate espionage, it was a slaughterhouse. We are going to burn this place down, Sable said, her voice completely devoid of humor. First, we get the proof, Lyra said, forcing herself to turn away from the cell. We need the second module. The main server bank is on the upper platform. They moved toward a metal staircase, a security drone, a sleek black sphere floating on anti-grav repulsors, drifted around the corner. Freeze, Ethan hissed. They pressed themselves flat against a server rack. The drone hovered, its red eye sweeping the corridor. Target identified, Sable whispered. I am naming him Mr. Sniffy. Sable, not the time, Lyra warned. Mr. Sniffy has a poor encryption protocol, Sable muttered, tapping her tablet. I am sending him a packet that suggests he is actually a toaster. The drone stopped. It rotated confusedly. Then, with a mournful beep, it drifted slowly downward and landed on the floor, powering down its weapon systems. Good night, Mr. Sniffy, Sable said. They reached the top of the stairs. A laser grid blocked the entrance to the server room, beams of coherent red light crisscrossing the doorway. Mira, you are up, Ethan said. Mira stepped forward. She looked at the lethal grid with a gentle, sad expression. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small multi-tool. Hello, she said softly to the emitter box on the wall. I am very sorry to violate your warranty. You are a very well-made device. It is not your fault you are being used for evil. She jammed the tool into the casing. The lasers flickered and died. Thank you, she whispered. They slipped inside the server room. It was freezing cold, the air conditioning blasting to keep the massive banks of processors from overheating. Sable plugged in. I am in, she said. Searching for the Dominion files. Lines of code cascaded down the screens. Got it, she said, downloading the peace broadcast protocols. She paused. Her face went pale. Oh, she said. Oh, this is bad. What? Lyra asked. It is not a broadcast, Sable said. It is a command code, a neuro-linguistic trigger. If they fire this through the relay, it will not just carry a message. It will rewrite the aggression centers of the brain. It turns off the will to fight. It is a lobotomy, Ethan realized. A planetary lobotomy. Exactly, Sable said. The Dominion wants to turn the entire Federation into a docile workforce. And Helix. Helix gets the contract to maintain the tech. A noise from the corner of the room made them spin around. A figure was huddled behind a rack of hard drives. Don't shoot, a voice cried out. Ethan shone his light. It was Vance, the journalist. He looked terrible, bruised, his clothes torn, one eye swollen shut. Vance, Ethan lowered the flashlight. You are alive? They took me. Vance wept, scrambling out. When the safe house was hit, they brought me here. They wanted to know where you went. He grabbed Ethan's arm. You have to get me out, please. They are going to kill me. We are getting you out, Ethan said, pulling him up. Come on. We have the data. Vance looked at the data module in Lyra's hand. You found it? Yes, Lyra said. We have everything. Thank God, Vance said. He looked at the door. Then he looked at a red button on the wall next to him. I am sorry, he whispered. What? Ethan asked. Vance slammed his hand onto the button. A klaxon began to wail, a deafening, rhythmic shriek. The room bathed in flashing red light. Vance backed away, hands raised. They promised me. If I gave them the location, if I kept you here, they promised they would let me go. You traitorous worm. Lyra surged forward, but the blast doors slammed shut, sealing the exit. A voice boomed over the intercom. Security breach in Sector 4. Containment active. The door on the far side of the room hissed open. A squad of Helix security guards poured in, weapons raised. They were not carrying standard firearms. They held heavy, bulky rifles that glowed with blue energy, stolen alien tech. "Secure the assets," the lead guard shouted. "Terminate the human accomplices," Vance screamed as a guard grabbed him. "Wait, I did my part. You said I could go. Loose end," the guard grunted. He raised his rifle, aiming at Vance's head. "No!" Ethan didn't think. He reacted. He grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall and hurled it. The heavy cylinder spun through the air and slammed into the guard's helmet with a sickening crunch. The shot went wide, blasting a hole in the ceiling. "Run!" Ethan yelled, tackling Vance and dragging him behind a row of servers. Lyra and the others dove for cover as plasma bolts chewed up the floor where they had been standing. "Why did you save him?" Lyra screamed, firing her weapon blindly over the server rack. "He sold us out. Because we are not them," Ethan roared back. He looked at the ductwork above. "Sable! Overload the cooling system." "What?" Sable yelled, ducking a shower of sparks. "No, the coolant!" Ethan pointed to the massive pipes running along the ceiling. "Blow the pressure valves! Create a fog!" Sable tapped her tablet. "On it!" A second later, a series of explosive hisses erupted from the ceiling. Clouds of freezing white nitrogen gas blasted into the room, instantly reducing visibility to 0. "Move!" Ethan grabbed Vance by the collar and Lyra by the hand. "To the vents!" They scrambled up the server racks, climbing the hardware like a ladder. Ethan kicked the grate open and shoved Vance inside, then pulled Mira and Sable up. Lyra vaulted in last, and they scurried into the darkness of the ventilation shaft just as the room below filled completely with freezing fog. They crawled for 10 minutes, putting distance between themselves and the lab, until they reached a junction room where the main fans were housed. It was loud, but safe for the moment. They tumbled out of the vent onto a metal catwalk. Vance curled into a ball in the corner, sobbing. Lyra marched over to him. She looked ready to kill him. Her hand was on her weapon. "You almost got us killed," she hissed. "You betrayed the entire system for your own skin." "I didn't want to die," Vance wailed. "I am just a journalist. I am not a soldier." "They broke my fingers." "Lyra, look!" He held up his hand. 2 fingers were purple and bent at wrong angles. Lyra stopped. She stared at the hand. Her expression warred between disgust and pity. Ethan stepped between them. "Enough." "Lyra, he is a liability," Lyra said, turning her fury on Ethan. "And you risked everything to save a traitor. That was tactical suicide, Ethan. If you had died saving him, the mission would have failed. The war would have started." "I did not die," Ethan said calmly. "But you could have," Lyra shouted. Her composure shattered. She slammed her hand against the metal railing. "Why do you have to be so stupidly good? You cannot save everyone, Ethan. That is not how war works. You have to choose who survives." "Is that what you do?" Ethan asked softly. "You choose?" "Yes," Lyra cried, tears suddenly spilling over. "I choose every day. I chose to leave my family to become a courier. I chose to crash the ship to save the data. I have to be the strong one. I have to be the one who cuts the rope. And I am tired. Ethan, I am so tired of being the one who survives while everyone else bleeds." The silence in the fan room was heavy. Ethan walked over to her. He did not touch her, not yet. He just stood close, a solid presence in the spinning world. You do not have to be the strong one right now, he said. Lyra looked up at him. The amethyst eyes were swimming with tears. She looked young, terrified, and incredibly lonely. She took a shaky breath. Can I? She started, then stopped. What? Ethan asked. Can I touch your face? She whispered. I need to know you are real. I need to anchor myself. Ethan nodded. Yes. Lyra reached out. Her hand trembled as her fingers grazed his jawline. Her skin was cool. His was warm. She traced the line of his cheekbone, the rough stubble on his chin. It was a touch of profound desperation and tenderness. Ethan covered her hand with his own, pressing it closer to his face. I am here, he said. I am real, and I am not going anywhere. They stood there for a long moment, the chaos of the chase suspended in the simple electric contact of skin on skin. It was an intimacy that transcended the physical. It was two people claiming each other in a place built to erase them. We should... Sable's voice came from the shadows, unusually soft. We should keep moving. Lyra pulled her hand back slowly, wiping her eyes. She took a deep breath, reassembling her armor, but the cracks remained, leaving room for something human to shine through. Right, she said. The exit tunnel is through the maintenance bay, but there is a sealed blast door. We need a code, Ethan said. I do not have a code, Sable said. It is hardwired, biometric. Mira stepped forward. She had been standing by the heavy circular door at the end of the catwalk, staring at the control panel. I can open it, she said. How? Lyra asked. That is a level 5 containment seal. Mira turned to face them. She lowered her hood. Because it was built for me, she said. What are you talking about? Ethan asked. Mira unzipped her hoodie. Underneath, she wore a simple gray tunic, but on her chest, right over her sternum, the skin was translucent, revealing a glowing geometric lattice of blue light embedded in her flesh. I am not a refugee, Mira said quietly. I am not a healer. I am a bio-key. Lyra stared at her, horror dawning on her face. Mira, what is that? The architects built the relay, Mira explained. But the Dominion found the blueprints for the keys. They engineered me. I was grown in a vat. Lyra. My nervous system is designed to interface directly with the relay core. I am the only thing that can turn it on fully. And I am the only thing that can shut it down. Why didn't you tell us? Lyra asked. Her voice hurt. Because I was afraid, Mira said. Tears welled in her golden eyes. I was afraid that if you knew I was a tool, you would use me like one. Or that you would decide it was safer to destroy me so the Dominion could never use me. She looked at the floor, and I was afraid Helix would just take me apart to see how I work. Lyra walked over to her. She grabbed Mira's face in her hands. Never, Lyra said fiercely. You are not a tool. You are my sister. Mira sobbed, collapsing into Lyra's arms. Sable joined the hug, wrapping her arms around both of them. We are a mess. Sable mumbled into Mira's shoulder. A dysfunctional, emotional interspecies mess. Ethan watched them, a lump in his throat. Okay, he said, clearing his throat. Let's get the key to the lock. But we are doing this on our terms. Mira pulled away, wiping her face. She stepped up to the blast door. She pressed her hand against the panel. The blue light in her chest pulsed, syncing with the mechanism. Access granted. The heavy bolts retracted with a ground-shaking thud. The door swung open, revealing the damp, cool air of the storm tunnels leading back to the coast. They ran. They dragged Vance with them, emerging into the night air near the docks just as sirens began to wail in the distance. They found a payphone, a relic that miraculously still worked. Ethan called a cab using a fake voice, directing it to a random corner 3 blocks away to throw off the pursuit. While they waited in the shadows of a shipping container, Ethan pulled out his phone. He had a dozen missed notifications. He opened his banking app. Account frozen. Contact branch immediately. He opened his email. Urgent. Federal warrant issued. Then, a text message from an unknown number. It was a picture. It was his own face, plastered across a digital wanted poster on a news feed. Ethan Cole. Wanted for domestic terrorism and kidnapping. Armed and dangerous. Ethan stared at the screen. The life he had tried to rebuild, the credit score he had nursed back to health, the contractor license, the simple dream of the Victorian house was gone, burned to ash. He looked up. Lyra was watching him. She saw the phone. She knew what it meant. "I am sorry," she whispered. Ethan turned off the phone and dropped it onto the concrete. He crushed it under his boot. "Don't be," he said. "I never liked that guy anyway." He looked at the group, a diplomat, a hacker, a bio-key, a traitor, and a broke contractor. "We have the proof," Ethan said. "We have the key, and we have the map." He looked toward the hill where his house stood, dark and silent against the stars. "Now we just have to go home and finish this." The house was waiting for them. It did not look like a sanctuary. From the overgrown backyard where they emerged from the drainage ditch, covered in muck and smelling of the sea tunnels, the Victorian structure looked like a dying beast. The windows were dark, staring out like empty sockets. The porch sagged under the weight of neglect, but beneath the rotting wood and peeling paint, the ground hummed with a low, thrumming vibration that Ethan felt in his teeth. "We are back," Sable whispered, wiping slime from her boots. "The prodigal aliens return." Ethan looked toward the town center, visible through the gaps in the tree line. It was lit up like a carnival. Searchlights swept the low-hanging clouds, and massive holographic banners draped the sides of the historic town hall. They read, "Blackwood Harbor Revitalization Summit, powered by Helix Meridian." "They are not hiding it," Lyra said, her voice hard. "They are throwing a party for the invasion." "It is brilliant cover," Sable admitted, though she sounded nauseous. "The spike in energy from the relay activation will look like a power grid test for the new infrastructure. The heavy security presence will just look like protection for the visiting senators. They are going to rewrite the galaxy's history in plain sight, and the locals are going to cheer for it because there will be free hors d'oeuvres." "Let's go inside," Ethan said. "We have work to do." They entered through the blown-out section of the basement wall where Ethan had staged his fake accident. The air inside the underground chamber was stale and charged with static. The holographic map flickered weakly in the center of the room. Mira went straight to the wall, pressing her palm against the warm, vibrating surface. "It is awake," she said softly. "It knows the time is close." Ethan looked around the space. His tools were still scattered where he had left them. A half-finished cup of coffee sat on a sawhorse, growing mold. It felt like 10 years had passed since he had put it there. Not 2 days. "We cannot just defend," Lyra said, pacing the length of the room. Her diplomat's composure had hardened into something sharper, military resolve. "If we just hold the door, they will eventually breach it. They have the numbers, they have the firepower, and now that they have labeled Ethan a terrorist, they have the legal authority to drop a bomb on us and call it public safety." "So we run?" Vance asked. The traitorous journalist was sitting in the corner, his hands zip-tied. He looked small and pathetic, shivering in his wet clothes. "No," Lyra said, "we do not run. We speak. She turned to the group. The Dominion's plan relies on silence. They need the relay to send a subliminal command signal, the peace broadcast. It overrides critical thought. It pacifies. But the relay is just a transmitter. It broadcasts whatever is fed into the core. She looked at the data modules they had retrieved, the one from the storage unit and the one from the lab. We have the evidence, Lyra said. The recordings of the coup, the financial trails linking Helix to the Dominion, the blueprints of the weaponized biological experiments. You want to broadcast the truth, Ethan said, understanding dawning on him. I want to turn the volume up so high that no one can ignore it, Lyra said. We use the relay. We override the Helix signal with our own. We broadcast the data to every receiver in the system, Earth, the Federation, the fringe colonies. We strip them naked in front of the universe. Sable let out a low whistle. That is, ambitious, she said, and technically insane. You want to hijack a precursor megastructure using a hacked router and a prayer? Can you do it? Lyra asked. Sable cracked her knuckles. I can try, but I will need to bridge the gap between our terrestrial internet and the relay's quantum core. I have to route the live stream of the summit through the relay, overlay our data, and blast it out. It will be like trying to thread a needle while riding a roller coaster that is on fire. Do it, Lyra commanded. Ethan stood back, watching them work. He felt a strange dislocation. Above them, the world he knew, contracts, code violations. The price of lumber was proceeding as normal. Below, 3 women from the stars were planning to save civilization, and he was the landlord. He walked over to his workbench and picked up a heavy wrench. He weighed it in his hand. Ethan, Lyra called out. She was looking at him, her expression softening. Are you with us? Ethan looked at the wrench, then at the house around him. He thought about the life he had been trying to build here, the quiet mornings, the satisfaction of a level floor, the anonymity. If we do this, he said, looking at her, if we really do this, there is no going back. I am already a person of interest. But after this, I will be the guy who helped aliens expose a global conspiracy. I will never lay another brick in this town. I will never have a normal Tuesday again. Lyra walked over to him. She stopped just outside of touching distance. I know, she said. It is a terrible price. I would not ask you to pay it if there were another way. Ethan looked at the wanted poster he had seen on his phone. He thought about Vance, cowering in the corner, willing to sell out the universe for safety. He realized he had spent his whole life trying to be safe. He had played by the rules. He had paid his taxes. He had kept his head down. And it had left him broke, alone, and hollow. It wasn't much of a life, Ethan said, a slow smile spreading across his face. It was just a waiting room. He tossed the wrench onto the table. It landed with a definitive clang. Let's make some noise. The preparations began. The basement became a hive of frantic activity. Sable was stripping wires from the house's electrical panel, splicing them into the alien console. Mira was meditating against the relay wall, syncing her breathing with the machine's pulse. Then, the air in the room grew cold. It wasn't a draft. It was a drop in pressure that made Ethan's ears pop. The shadows in the far corner of the room lengthened, twisting and coalescing into a tall, shimmering projection. Sable yelped and scrambled back over the console. A figure stood in the hologram. It was not human. It was tall, impossibly slender, wearing armor that looked like poured glass. Its face was a mask of pale, elegant features, with eyes that were black voids. Lyra froze. Her hand went to her weapon, but she didn't draw it. Valerian, she whispered. The figure, Valerian, smiled. It was a cold, practiced expression. Greetings, courier. The projection spoke. The voice seemed to come from inside their heads, smooth and oily. You look tired, and you are keeping poor company. Valerian looked at Ethan with mild disgust, then at Mira with hungry intensity. Who is that? Ethan demanded, stepping in front of Lyra. I am the solution, Valerian said. I am a hunter for the High Council, or what you would call the Dominion. He walked or glided around the room, though his feet did not touch the floor. You are cornered, Lyra, Valerian said. The humans have surrounded the property. The relay is priming for our transmission. You have the data. Yes, but you cannot transmit it. You lack the interface key. He stopped and pointed a long, glass-clad finger at Mira. Unless, of course, you intend to use the abomination. Mira shrank back, her golden eyes wide with terror. She is not an abomination, Lyra snapped. She is a person. She is a vat-grown lockpick, Valerian corrected gently. She is illegal technology. Her very existence is a crime against the purity of the natural order. But I am a merciful creature. Valerian turned his void eyes to Lyra. I offer you a trade. Surrender the abomination to me. Let me extract the key protocol from her biology. In exchange, I will grant you and the chaotic one, Sable, safe passage. You can disappear. Go to the outer rim. Live your lives. And the Earth? Ethan asked. Earth is a resource, Valerian said without looking at him. It will be managed. Lyra laughed. It was a bitter, sharp sound. You think I would trade her life for mine? I think you are practical, Valerian said. And I think you know the truth about your own government. Do you really think the Federation wants you to return? Do you think they want that data exposed? He leaned in, his holographic face looming large. The coup is convenient for them. Lyra, war stimulates the economy. Fear consolidates power. If you broadcast that truth, you will not be a hero. You will be an inconvenience to both sides. No one is coming to rescue you. You are alone. Lyra's shoulders slumped. The doubt hit her like a physical blow. She looked at Mira, then at the map of the Federation. Get out, Lyra whispered. Consider the offer, Valerian said. You have until the summit begins. Then, mercy ends. The hologram dissolved into mist. The silence that followed was heavy. Mira was weeping silently. Sable was typing furiously, but her hands were shaking. Lyra walked to the ladder. I need air, she said. Ethan followed her. He found her in the kitchen, staring out through the boarded-up window at the lighthouse sweeping its beam across the dark ocean. He is lying, Ethan said. Is he? Lyra asked. She didn't turn around. Her voice was brittle. I have seen the corruption, Ethan. I have seen good leaders turn a blind eye because it was politically expedient. What if he is right? What if I scream the truth and the universe just shrugs? Then we scream louder, Ethan said. He walked up behind her. And we do not do it for them. We do it for us, for Mira, for the fact that right is right, even if nobody is watching. Lyra turned around in the dim light of the kitchen. She looked stripped down. The warrior was gone. The diplomat was gone. There was just a woman who was terrified of failing the people she loved. I cannot lose you, she whispered. The confession hung in the air, fragile and terrifying. Ethan stepped closer. The magnetic pull that had been plaguing them for days surged, but this time, he did not fight it. You won't, he said. Lyra looked up at him. The mind link potential hummed between them, a static charge waiting for a spark. We have to be careful, she warned, her voice trembling. My emotions, they are amplified. If we connect, if we touch, it will be overwhelming. It is not just physical for my kind. It is a fusion. I know, Ethan said. He reached out, but he stopped an inch from her face. He waited. He was not taking. He was offering. I am not asking for a fusion, he said softly. I am asking for you. Just you. Lyra let out a shuddering breath. She closed the gap. Yes, she breathed. She placed her hands on his chest. He cupped her face. The contact was electric. It wasn't the psychic lightning of the mind link. It was warmer, deeper. It was the grounding weight of another person. Ethan kissed her. It was not a movie kiss. It was desperate and unpolished. It tasted of fear and adrenaline in the dusty air of the abandoned house. Lyra made a sound in her throat, half sob, half surrender, and gripped his shirt, pulling him closer as if she were trying to merge with him through the fabric. For a moment, the war outside didn't exist. There was only the heat of her skin, the smell of rain and ozone that clung to her, and the fierce, defiant beating of their hearts. They broke apart, breathing hard, foreheads resting against each other. Ethan's hands were shaking. Lyra's eyes were blown wide, swirling with colors he couldn't name. Okay, Ethan whispered. Okay. Lyra ran a thumb over his lips. Her gaze was fierce. After this, she said, if we survive this, we get to be real. No wars, no running, just this. I am holding you to that, Ethan said. He kissed her forehead, a promise sealed in the dark. Come on. Let's go save the world so we can have a second date. Morning came with a fanfare of trumpets. Ethan watched on the monitor in the basement as the Blackwood Harbor Revitalization Summit began. A stage had been erected in the town square. Flags snapped in the wind. American flags, Helix Meridian corporate flags. A crowd of dignitaries, reporters, and confused locals gathered. In the center of the stage stood the Helix CEO, a man with a smile that looked like it had been focus grouped to death. Beside him was the senator, and behind them, a row of Aegis agents in dress uniforms. Sable sat at the console. She had put on her war paint, streaks of grease she had found in Ethan's toolbox applied to her cheeks. Okay, team, she said, her voice climbing an octave. Here is the run of show. The CEO is going to give a speech about connectivity and global unity. At the climax of the speech, they are going to trigger the relay. They think it is going to send the peace signal. And instead, Ethan asked. Instead, Sable said, grinning manically, I am going to hijack their uplink. I am routing the signal through the house's wiring, into the relay core, and out to the galaxy. I am going to overlay their broadcast with Lyra's data. So when the universe tunes in, they won't hear a command to sleep. They will see high-definition footage of Helix executives shaking hands with space fascists. And the audio? Lyra asked. I am replacing their speech with a loop of Vance confessing to everything, Sable said. It is very catchy. Mira stood by the wall. She was wearing a suit she had fashioned from the thermal shielding of the escape pod. It clung to her frame, glowing with faint blue lines. She looked terrified. Ethan walked over to her. You okay? He asked. Mira looked at her hands. I am afraid, Ethan, when I interface, I have to open my mind completely. I have to become the channel. She looked at the glowing aperture in the floor. If the signal is too strong, if the collective will of the Dominion pushes back, I could be overwritten. I could cease to be Mira. I would just be the door. Ethan gripped her shoulder. Listen to me, he said fiercely. You are not a door. You are Mira. You like Pop-Tarts and you apologize to machines. No, you are the most human person in this room. He looked at the heavy power cable running to the main breaker. "If I see you fading," Ethan promised. "If I see you drifting away, I pull the plug. I do not care if we lose the broadcast. I am not trading you for the truth." Mira looked at him, tears swimming in her eyes. She nodded. "Thank you, Ethan." She stepped onto the platform. The relay hummed louder, the sound rising to a scream. The geometric light trapped in the floor flared, illuminating the basement with blinding brilliance. "The summit is starting," Sable announced. "The CEO is walking to the podium." Lyra stood beside Ethan. She took his hand. Her grip was bone-crushing. "It is time," she said. "Wait," Mira said. Her voice echoed, distorted by the energy swirling around her. She turned to face them. Her eyes were glowing pure white. "There is something else. The relay. It is not passive." "What do you mean?" Sable asked, fingers hovering over the keyboard. "It does not just broadcast data," Mira said. "The architects, they built it to amplify intent. It responds to emotional resonance." She looked at Valerian's projection site, then at the group. "Helix is trying to push a signal of control, of domination. That is a cold emotion. It is rigid." "And us?" Lyra asked. "We have to offer something stronger," Mira said. "The relay will choose the signal with the strongest resonance. We cannot just broadcast files." "Lyra, we have to broadcast us." "Us?" Ethan asked. "Our truth," Mira said. "Our fear, our hope, our loyalty. The relay needs a heartbeat to anchor the signal. If we are just tactical, we will lose. We have to be real." Lyra looked at Ethan. She squeezed his hand. "Real," she repeated. "Sable, are you ready?" Lyra asked. Sable took a deep breath. She looked at the screen where the Helix CEO was raising his hands to applause. "I am ready to ruin this man's career," she said. Mira stepped into the center of the light. The blue energy whipped around her like a tornado. She threw her head back and screamed, a sound of pure connection. "Now!" Lyra yelled. Sable hit the enter key. Ethan threw the main breaker switch, and the world turned white. The roar of the helicopters was loud enough to rattle the fillings in Ethan's teeth. Above them, the Victorian house was no longer a home. It was a stage. High-intensity floodlights cut through the pre-dawn mist, turning the peeling gray wood into a stark, blinding white. The shadows in the yard were erased. The privacy Ethan had cherished was stripped away, replaced by the mechanical scream of engines and the heavy thud of boots hitting the frozen ground. Inside the basement, the vibration was constant. Dust trickled down from the floor joists in steady streams, coating the improvised console where Sable typed with frantic, terrified speed. "They are breaching the perimeter," Sable announced, her voice pitching up. "I count 4 tactical teams. And a tank. Why do they have a tank? It is a zoning violation." Ethan stood at the base of the ladder, looking up at the trap door he had reinforced with steel plates. He held a framing nailer in one hand and a crowbar in the other. He looked ridiculous, and he knew it. He was a man bringing carpentry tools to an interstellar war. "Let them come," Lyra said. She stood in the center of the room, her back to the glowing aperture of the relay. She was trembling, but her head was high. "We just need 5 minutes." A voice boomed from above, amplified by loudspeakers that echoed off the surrounding hills. "Ethan Cole. This is Director Sterling of the Aegis Agency. We have the property surrounded." The voice was calm, reasonable, and terrifyingly human. "We know you are in there, Mr. Cole, and we know you are a victim. You have been manipulated by hostile non-terrestrial entities. You are frightened. You are confused." Ethan looked at Lyra. She was not manipulating him. She was looking at him with eyes that held a galaxy of trust. "Come out now," the voice continued. "Surrender the non-human assets, and you walk away. Full immunity. We will wipe your record. We will restore your accounts. We will even pay off the mortgage on this house. You can go back to your life. Ethan, just open the door." Ethan listened to the offer. It was everything he had wanted 3 days ago. Safety, solvency, a quiet life where the biggest problem was dry rot in the porch. He looked at Mira, who was stripping off her outer layers to prepare for the interface. He looked at Sable, who was sweating through her grease paint. He looked at Lyra. Immunity. Ethan muttered. He walked to the ventilation grate near the ceiling, the one that led to the side yard. He shouted into it, his voice carrying up the pipe. "Hey, Sterling!" There was a pause. The loudspeaker clicked. "Mr. Cole, you can keep the immunity," Ethan yelled, "and you can keep the mortgage." "Ethan, be reasonable," the voice soothed. "Think about your future." "I am thinking about it," Ethan roared back. "And I realized something. A life where I have to sell out my friends to pay for a roof isn't a life. It is just a cage with better financing, so come and get us." He stepped back from the vent, chest heaving. Sable stopped typing for 1 second to offer a slow clap. "That was incredible," she said. "Cage with better financing. I am stealing that for my memoir." "They are coming," Lyra said sharply. The sound of the front door splintering echoed down through the floorboards. Heavy footsteps thundered in the hallway. "They are in the house," Ethan said. He racked the slide on the nail gun, though it didn't actually have a slide. It just made a satisfying clack sound when he engaged the safety. Suddenly, the air in the basement dropped 50 degrees. The wall behind the generator, the thick concrete foundation wall, hissed. A circle of glass-like light appeared on the stone, burning through the masonry in perfect silence. "The hunter," Lyra whispered. Valerian stepped through the wall as if it were mist. He was even more terrifying in the flesh than he had been as a hologram. He was tall, wearing armor that shifted color like spilled oil. He held a weapon that looked like a shard of crystallized lightning. "So much noise," Valerian said. His voice was smooth, cutting through the chaos like a scalpel. He raised the weapon. "Scatter!" Lyra screamed. She shoved Ethan hard to the left just as a bolt of blue energy scorched the air where he had been standing. The blast hit the workbench, vaporizing a stack of blueprints and sending molten metal spraying across the room. Ethan rolled and came up behind a stack of insulation bales. Lyra returned fire with her scavenged weapon, a pulse of orange light that splashed harmlessly against Valerian's personal shield. Valerian laughed. It was a dry, rattling sound. "You are children throwing stones," the hunter mocked. He glided forward, ignoring the debris raining down from the ceiling. Ethan looked around. He needed a weapon. He needed an advantage. He saw the temporary support columns he had installed to hold up the sagging kitchen floor. They were hydraulic jacks under immense tension. Ethan sprinted. He did not run at Valerian. He ran at the column nearest the hunter. Valerian turned, raising his shard. "You are bold, human, but fragile." Ethan didn't stop. He slid across the concrete floor like a baseball player stealing home, bringing the crowbar up in a vicious arc. He didn't aim for the alien. He aimed for the release valve on the hydraulic jack. Clang! The valve sheared off. The jack collapsed instantly. The massive oak beam above it, supporting the weight of the cast-iron stove in the kitchen, groaned and dropped 6 inches. The floor above buckled. The cast-iron stove, weighing 400 pounds, crashed through the weakened subfloor. Valerian looked up just in time to see a vintage appliance falling on his head. He raised his shield, bracing for the impact. The stove slammed into the energy barrier with a deafening crash. driving the hunter to his knees. The shield held, but the floor debris buried him in a cloud of plaster dust and splintered wood. "Nice renovation," Sable yelled from behind the server rack. Ethan scrambled back to his feet, coughing in the dust. It wouldn't hold him for long. "Mira! Now!" Lyra shouted. Mira stood at the edge of the relay aperture. The light from the hole was blinding now, a column of pure white energy that seemed to go down to the core of the earth. "I need you to promise," Mira yelled over the roar of the machine. "What?" Ethan shouted, running to her side. "If I get lost," Mira cried, her eyes wide and terrified. "If the signal overwrites me, you pull me out. You promise." "We promise," Lyra said, grabbing Mira's hand. "We will not let you go." Mira nodded. She took a breath that sounded like a sob. "Okay," she whispered. She stepped into the light. The reaction was instantaneous. Her body arched, her arms thrown out. The blue lattice on her chest flared so bright it shone through her clothes. She did not scream in pain. She hummed, a low, resonant frequency that vibrated in Ethan's chest. Connection established. A mechanical voice thundered from the walls. Resonance detected. Host, Mira, intent, truth. Valerian exploded out of the debris pile. His armor was cracked, his shield flickering. He was furious. "Stop her!" he shrieked. He raised his weapon. Ethan stepped in front of Mira. Lyra stepped next to him. "No," Ethan said. Valerian fired, but the bolt didn't hit them. It curved. The light from the relay bent the energy, pulling it into the aperture like water down a drain. The relay protects the key, Lyra realized. Above them, the ceiling shook. The Aegis team was drilling through the floor. "We are out of time," Sable yelled. "I have the uplink. I am pushing the stream. Do it," Ethan yelled. Sable hit the execution command, but nothing happened. The screen flashed red. Signal rejected. Conflict detected. "What is wrong?" Lyra screamed. "It is Helix," Sable shouted, typing so fast her fingers were a blur. "They are pushing their own signal, the peace broadcast. They are using the summit transmitter to flood the frequency. The relay is confused. It has two signals. It needs a choice." Mira's voice echoed. It was not coming from her mouth. It was coming from the air itself. "It needs..." "Wait." Valerian laughed again. He stepped closer, his void eyes gleaming. "You cannot win a contest of will against the Dominion," he sneered. "Our order is absolute. Your chaos is weak." He raised his hand. The relay light began to flicker, turning a sickly green. "He is overriding her," Lyra gasped. "He is using his own neural link to boost the Helix signal." Ethan looked at Lyra. He saw the terror in her eyes. She was strong, but she was exhausted. She had been running for months. She needed an anchor. Ethan dropped his nail gun. He took Lyra's hand. Lyra looked at him, startled. "What are you doing?" she asked. "We are partners, right?" Ethan said. He squeezed her hand. "Let him have the Dominion. We have this house." Lyra's eyes searched his. She saw the truth there. No hesitation, no fear of the alien, just a stubborn, absolute refusal to give up. She took a breath. "Okay," she whispered. She squeezed back, and she opened the door. The mind link hit Ethan like a physical blow, but this time, he didn't fight it. He leaned into it. He felt Lyra's soul. He felt the cold winds of her home planet. He felt the crushing weight of her duty. He felt the sharp, jagged edges of her fear. And he poured himself into the empty spaces. He gave her the smell of sawdust, the satisfaction of a wall built straight, the stubbornness of a man who buys a ruin because he believes it can be saved. He gave her his love, not a soft flower petal thing, but a load-bearing thing, a beam that would not break. "I am here," he thought at her. "I know," she thought back. "I have you." The connection between them flared, a gold and violet fire that shot from their joined hands into Mira's back. Mira gasped. Her eyes snapped open, blazing with impossible light. Resonance confirmed. The voice thundered, "Signal lock! Truth! No!" Valerian screamed. The green light vanished, obliterated by a shockwave of pure, blinding white. The relay roared, and the broadcast went out. In the town square above, the Helix CEO was mid-sentence. A new era of connectivity and peace, where we... The massive screens behind him flickered. The corporate logo dissolved into static. And then, the audio cut out. A new voice boomed over the square. It was Vance, the traitor, his voice thick with tears. "They promised me safety. They are going to harvest them. It is a coup." The crowd murmured. The CEO froze. Then the video feed switched. It was not the summit. It was a recording. Crisp, high-definition footage of a boardroom. The Helix CEO, the same man standing on the stage, was shaking hands with Valerian. "The peace broadcast will pacify 80% of the population within 6 hours," the recorded CEO said. "We will have full labor compliance." "And the extraction rights?" Valerian asked in the video. "Yours," the CEO said. "Earth is open for business." The crowd in the square went silent. Then, a low roar of outrage began to build. On the screen, the image shifted again. It showed lists, names, bank accounts, dates of disappearances. Then, finally, Lyra's face appeared. She looked tired, dirty, and regal. "People of Earth, citizens of the Federation," she said. "My name is Lyra. I am a courier, and I am telling you the truth. We are not enemies. We are being sold." The feed cut to a live shot, the basement. It showed Ethan holding Lyra's hand. It showed Mira glowing like a star. It showed the hunter, Valerian, cowering in the corner. "Do not look away," Lyra said. "Do not let them sell your silence." The feed ended. Chaos erupted in the square. The reporters rushed the stage. The Aegis agents looked at each other, confused, their orders conflicting with the reality on the screens. The senator tried to run, but was blocked by a wall of angry constituents. In the basement, the energy was becoming unstable. "The relay is overloading," Sable screamed. "We pushed too much data. The core is going critical. It is going to seal itself. We have to go," Ethan yelled. He pulled Lyra toward the exit. Mira stumbled out of the light, the glow fading from her skin. She collapsed into Ethan's arms. Valerian stood up. He looked at the crumbling ceiling. He looked at Lyra. "The truth is out," the hunter said. His voice was hollow. "It is irreversible." He looked at Lyra. "Wipe the key," he said. "Erase her mind. Destroy the interface. If you do, I can grant you extraction. I can get you off this rock before the thermal collapse." Lyra stopped. She looked at Valerian. She looked at Mira, who was barely conscious, clinging to Ethan's shirt. "No," Lyra said. Valerian's eyes narrowed. "You choose death?" "I choose integrity," Lyra said, "and I choose my family." She raised her weapon and fired a single shot at the ceiling support above Valerian's head. The beam came down. Valerian vanished under tons of rock and timber. "Go!" Lyra yelled. They ran. They scrambled up the ladder, through the kitchen, and out the back door just as the floor of the house gave way. The sound was not an explosion. It was an implosion. The ground beneath the Victorian house simply dropped. The basement collapsed into the relay chamber, and the earth swallowed the secret. They tumbled into the tall grass of the backyard, gasping for air, covered in dust and plaster. Behind them, the house groaned. The back half of the structure had sunken into a crater, leaving the front facade standing like a jagged tooth against the sky. Ethan sat up, coughing. He wiped the dust from his eyes. Sable sat up next to him. She looked at the ruin. "I did not survive a galactic coup," she wheezed, "to die under a house you bought because you were feeling optimistic." Ethan laughed. It was a hysterical, shaking sound. He flopped back onto the grass, and it was a good deal. He defended weakly. Lyra crawled over to them. She checked Mira. Mira was sleeping, her chest rising and falling in a steady human rhythm. "She is okay," Lyra whispered. "She is just sleeping." Ethan looked at Lyra. Her face was streaked with dirt. Her dress was ruined. She was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. "We did it," he said. Lyra nodded. She reached out and touched his face. "We did it, partner." The aftermath was a slow burn. Aegis did not vanish overnight, but they fractured. The public outcry was too loud to silence. Investigations were launched. Helix executives were arrested at airports trying to flee to non-extradition countries. The senator resigned in disgrace. The house was cordoned off as a geological hazard zone, but nobody tried to dig there. The radiation levels, harmless but confusing to sensors, kept the curious away. 3 weeks later, they were sitting on the hood of Ethan's truck, parked on the cliff overlooking the ocean. Sable was wearing Ethan's favorite gray hoodie. It swallowed her small frame. "That is my hoodie," Ethan noted. "War loot," Sable said, popping a potato chip into her mouth. "By the laws of conquest, I own all your cotton blends." Lyra sat next to him. She was holding a tablet. "We got a signal," she said quietly. Ethan stiffened. "Bad guys?" "No," Lyra said. "The resistance, the broadcast worked. Ethan, the Federation is in turmoil, but the good kind. The coup leaders are being exposed, and there is a ship coming." "A ship?" Ethan asked. "Extraction," Lyra said. "They can take us home. They can take us to a safe zone." She looked at him. Ethan looked out at the ocean. He thought about it. He thought about going back to being just a contractor, about fixing the house, what was left of it, about being safe. He looked at Lyra. "Are you going?" he asked. Lyra looked at the tablet, then she turned it off. "They said the extraction window is open for 30 days. She said. She took his hand. I think I have some diplomatic work to do here first." Sable groaned. "Oh, great. More diplomatic work. Please do it quietly. I am trying to hack the Pentagon to order pizza." Mira, sitting in the truck bed wrapped in a blanket, smiled. It was a real smile, wide and unburdened. "I like it here," she said. "The toaster is very friendly." Ethan looked back at the house. It was a wreck. Half of it was gone. The roof was caved in. It was a disaster that would take years to fix. He smiled. "You know," he said, squeezing Lyra's hand, "I realized something." "What?" Lyra asked. "I didn't lose my old life," he said. "I just outgrew it." He hopped off the hood of the truck and looked at the three of them, the hacker, the healer, and the diplomat who had stolen his heart. He looked at the ruin on the hill. "I bought an abandoned house, and I still can't believe 3 alien girls were living beneath it." Lyra hopped down beside him. She took his hand, firm, chosen, and warm. "Believe it," she said. Ethan looked at the horizon, where the sun was rising over the water. The future was messy. It was dangerous. They were fugitives, heroes, and partners. It was perfect. "Ready?" Ethan asked. Lyra smiled, and the smile went all the way to her amethyst eyes. "Ready?" They walked toward the ruin together, ready to build something new.